welcome to another episode of Embarrass and Bros. This is a podcast where we connect African entrepreneurs with global insights. I'm your host, Brian, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Aasiyah, the founder of BBCAKES, a business known for its on-trend retro and lunchbox cakes. In less than 2 years, Aasiyah has grown a business into a 5-person team and kind of built a community for herself. So I would like to give you the floor for you to introduce yourself, just give us an idea of who you are and kind of what started the journey for you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. I always like talking about my brand because for me it's still such a small business, and just speaking about it just makes me so happy to just reflect on it, and just being here is such a great opportunity. Yeah, my name is Aasiyah. I own BBCAKES. We are just over 2 years old. We have an Instagram following of around 10,000. And we do on-trend, retro and lunchbox cakes. We love building a community of people who all just share love for all things creative, all things artsy and beautiful. So yeah, we have quite a big community of mostly women on Instagram who support us. And yeah, that's what we do. Hoping to continue to just grow a community on Instagram.
And the business itself, how did you kind of start it? How was that initial spark? What sparked it?
So I've always been a hobby baker. So I started off as a student side hustle. And over time, I just really fell in love with being an entrepreneur and just the creative process of creating in general. So from there, that's sort of like how it grew and blossomed. And now I'm here today with it as a full-time job.
And throughout the first time where you were doing it as a student, as a side hustle, what challenges did you kind of face in terms of growing it? And how did you kind of maneuver through that?
So for me, I think challenges were actually deciding whether to take it seriously. To think about whether your side hustle is something worth investing all your time and energy into. That was something that was like a huge step for me. And I think also just convincing people around you that your side hustle is actually something which is profitable and something that you should continue. That was like something that was really difficult for me to convince people around me in the beginning.
And how did you get to the point where you convinced yourself, you know what, yeah, this is working. Let me just drop everything else and go 100%.
I think like if you're not your own biggest fan, nobody else is going to be your biggest fan. So I've always believed in sort of my abilities, and I've always believed that hard work pays off. So I had to sort of trust myself first to be able to convince other people. I also come from a really mathematical background. I studied business science at UCT, specializing in economics, so something very different from cakes. But I always felt that the artistic side of me just didn't get enough from being in that field. So I just decided to take a leap of faith and sort of marry the two by being an entrepreneur. And
you spoke about community and like the people around you supporting you. How important was that for them to get on the pace that you're doing something that you love? This one works for you. How important is that aspect in terms of running a business?
To be honest, not that important when the business is just starting. I feel like over time, people gain confidence as they see things. And I would say like I had a huge support from the online community, more support from the online community than from my own community, because not everybody is on social media seeing what you're doing, what you're putting out there. So I would say that the online community was super important and really motivated me to continue.
So the one thing about starting a business is you generally need capital. It's kind of a big thing, finding. How did you kind of go through your initial stages of, I need money to kind of start this thing. I need to buy equipment. I need to do this. How was that journey? How did that look like for you?
So up until today, it's completely self-funded. I've never had a loan from anyone. The longest loan I've had was from my dad for like a period of 3 weeks. But up until now, I've never had a loan. I started the business with 20 Rand in my student savings account, and worked sort of on a pre-order basis. I was able to get quite a good initial response, which I was able to reinvest, and over time I've just been reinvesting.
Oh, nice. 20 Rand.
Yeah, 20 Rand. I had a student savings account of 20 Rand. Prior to that, I wasn't working for a period of time while being a student. And I think like as a student, your priorities are different. You're not really looking to grow life savings at that stage.
Yeah.
But I wanted to create something that was flexible in terms of hours, but also was fulfilling in terms of having as a job.
Oh, nice. So looking back, what were the key moments or decisions that kind of shaped the trajectory in terms of where you are now?
I can't exactly pinpoint something specific that I feel like changed everything, but I just feel like it was definitely just believing in trial and error was something that I would say really stood out for me, because I never wrote a business plan at any point up until now. So it was never like a thing of like making like one big decision that was going to change the whole trajectory. I think for me, it was just about figuring out naturally and organically what the direction was that I feel like was part of the beauty of the process.
And the company itself has grown since you've started. You've been able to kind of do the scaling thing. How did you maneuver with regards to getting your first people within the business? What were the things you were looking for? And how did those people coming in kind of align with the values that you're trying to grow within your business?
So for me, doing my first interviews was so crazy for me. I worked in the service industry before this, so I had some form of an idea of what it's like to work in service and what kinds of, I would say, personality traits would be useful. And so for me, I've always had valued communication, especially in interviews, just looking at soft skills. I feel like that's been something really important that I've been looking at when doing job interviews and choosing people to hire. And yeah, it's quite a joke, like amongst our team that like they're all personality hires, meaning that like regardless of what's on paper, at the end of the day, it's about communication. It's about personality. It's about whether you gel with the brand as a whole, like the brand energy. Because I feel like that's super important because I'm not going to need to act with every single customer, but I would love for them to have a similar experience with each person that they interact with.
And with regards to the core values of the company, how did you go about building that idea of this is what the BBCAKES is about, and this is what people see when they hear about you, and this is what your employees kind of embody as well when they're in this place? How did you go about doing that?
So I definitely always from the beginning tried to develop a sort of business personality. And this personality was completely different from my own. It's always a joke amongst my friends because even when I communicate genuinely, I don't use a single emoji or anything like that, but the business personality is like super girly, super aesthetic, lots of emojis, lots of flowers and hearts and all those things. So it's almost like an alter ego that I've had to develop, which is actually the business personality. And I've always wanted that personality to be able to stand like without me. So that's something that I tried to create from the start. And that kind of grew organically, I would say, based on our customer base, also based on sort of the aesthetic of our products as well.
And so you've been able to manage this rapid growth that you've had within a space of 2 years. How have you been able to balance the business life and your life outside the business?
So one of the biggest lessons I've learned in this business is being able to say no. That is something that I've always struggled with when I was younger, but I think this business has taught me that. And that saying no in terms of like when reaching capacity of what we can actually take on versus the demand, being able to say like, you know what, it's okay. I'm not going to be able to at this point in time, assist all these people. But at some point in time, I want to grow the business to be able to do that. So I think that's also added to sort of the exclusivity of it and also maybe even contributed to the growth. But just being able to have like personal boundaries in terms of like how much work I take on, that's been like something that's really helped me over time to sort of balance the growth aspect.
And you spoke about your artistic side not being very challenged when you're doing your degree and that kind of led you to like, no, maybe I should do this. Within the South African space, what trends have you noticed within the baking industry that you're like, oh, this is what's going and that's how you went like, you know what, I'll need to start retro cakes. And that's kind of the thing that people gravitate. So how do you get to that point?
So I was actually, when I was in high school, a little bit torn between going in a creative degree direction or like a more mathematical, analytical direction. So I would say that originally the whole business kind of started as a creative outlet, but I would say that my artistic drive was more international trends rather than local trends. Because I think at the time of when starting it, there's quite a big misconception in South Africa that cakes are sort of seen as women's work, sort of seen as like home bakery type of jobs and not really seen as like really big, creative, interesting jobs here. So I would say my creative inspiration was mostly from international businesses, also from my personal interest in photography. I read lots of magazines, read lots of blogs. So I would say my creative inspirations, not necessarily like directly from cakes, or directly from other bakers in South Africa.
And the design of the cakes, do you do that yourself? What inspires them?
So I read a quote once that saying that a good artist steals, meaning that you draw inspiration from many different things, but you make it your own instead of copying. So I've always sort of gotten inspiration from what I've seen online, but then sort of made it our own. And over time, we've kind of made a catalog or a range, which is a BBCAKES range. Which I would say at this point in time, I can't tell you where all the inspiration has come from. It's come from so many different places, local and international, also from customer demands, over time, we sort of just organically have grown our sort of designs and our creative side, I would say.
And within South Africa, how do you see the demand of personalized creative baking kind of evolving? And how has it evolved since you've started your own business as well?
It's definitely moving more into the online space. I think people also really seeing the value in South Africa of having customized products. I think before, and especially like from the community I come from, cakes are more seen as like, when you have an event, you have, okay, any cake, but it's just, a symbol of celebrating. But now, I would say, and this is something that I push a lot, is moving away from celebrating to the idea of like gifting and something that's personalized. And the fact that if it's your birthday, it doesn't necessarily mean you bring the cake, but that it's something that one of your closest will gift you, and it'll be something designed in such a way which you can relate to and which you love eventually. Adding a little campaign recently with a packaging company, and we were really pushing the idea of making every single aspect of cake a gift at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a massive.
Which I think is really special.
And I think people buy each other cupcakes and then they gift it as that. So
yeah,
why shouldn't cake be the same?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think schools have a weird way when it comes to cake where if it's your birthday, you bring the cake. Like why? Why should I not give one a gift? And in that aspect, as an entrepreneur in South Africa, how has that journey been? Has there been resources around the country that have been that you could have looked at and like, oh, this could help me? How has that space kind of helped you think?
So actually, I would say a lot of my inspiration and a lot of my networks are mostly other creatives, but not necessarily relating to cake, and not necessarily like people who have like massive businesses. I would say like a lot of my strength comes from collaborations with other artistic people, photographers, makeup artists, people that do picnics, people that do lots of really cool, interesting stuff. I feel like that adds so much value and has added so much value to my brand. And just sort of realizing that like teaming up with somebody who's good at something else can really contribute positively to your own brand and your own aesthetic and strengthen sort of your brand presence, especially on social media.
Yeah. So this notion of networking collaboration, how have you gone about it from this get-go to build up an image of if people work with you, this is what they expect, and when you work with other people, that's what you expect? So
I would say it definitely starts from the product. When somebody takes our product, I always try and ensure that there's the same experience received. Like whether you ordered from us a year ago, 2 years ago to today, you receive the same, idea of value. And I think that in itself builds a lot of strength for the brand. And then if somebody has tasted our product, they're more likely to recommend us. And that's sort of like how the network gets built. And we have a lot of people who are mutual sort of, let's say, followers on Instagram who have really cool creative businesses and jobs and those kinds of things. And just being open to collaborations has really helped to eventually build like a really cool network of people. We've worked with lots of influencers as well. And yeah, we've done like a few photo shoots and really cool, interesting creative stuff, which has built like quite a good creative network at this point.
Yeah. So this notion of influencers, social media, it's been a really big thing for you. I feel like, how have you gone about figuring out that this is the tool to use to help rapidly grow my business? How did you get to that point? And how do you go about, let's say, planning a post in terms of this is what I'm going to do. This will work. This doesn't work. How did you kind of go through that stage?
So the crazy part is that I would say, I've always felt like I was infringing, with approaching an influencer and saying like, listen, can you post this for free? Like that's never been sort of the avenue that I've used. But it's more just been like a mutual thing of like, okay, cool. This person has a really cool page on Instagram. We become like mutual, commenters or likers on posts. And we built sort of like an online friendship, getting it to a point of like being able to mutually, help each other out. Like, oh, you need a cake. Like I can do a cake. I'm going to post for you. So I would say it's been more of like creating a network, a friendship network rather than a business collaborative network. Because I think it's really important to connect with whoever you are choosing to collaborate with because they become an extension of your brand. So for me, I've also always been really sort of selective about who we collaborate with because that definitely also contributes to the brand image.
Yeah. And what role has social media kind of had with regards to helping? Like right now, we over 10 point something followers on social media, on Instagram specifically. How is that kind of help grow the business?
So I think having a big following on social media definitely adds to customer confidence. Like they see the followers and they're like, wow, this seems like a really cool, legitimate business. Because I think the thing with online businesses are. You're never sure whether you can trust the businesses you see on Instagram. So I think that's definitely contributed to confidence. And I think in this day and age, Instagram has become more like the yellow pages for Gen Zs, younger people. So I think when looking for something like cakes on Instagram and something really cool pops up, you're more likely to order from them or, be interested in the brand if it's got a good social media following. Yeah. And I think just with referrals, it's always great to have like a good following because you're reaching a lot more people and you're more likely to basically be seen on Instagram and more people, your reach is just better.
And how have you been able to balance authenticity within your space? Because sometimes it's very important when you go on someone's page, you're like, are you forcing it?
I would say I've never been since I would say as the business owner, you have many jobs. You have social media, you have the financing, you have the staff related work. There's so many things. So for me, my approach to social media and marketing has always been that the product should sell itself and not be selling based on price or selling based on, something where the customer is somehow, how can I say, convinced to buy something against their will. So I've always tried to create like a page which is like really visually interesting, something that people want to be a part of. When they see customer pictures we've shared, I want customers to feel like I want to have an experience like that. Like I want to order a cake and have that kind of experience. So I think with that in mind and building sort of a strong brand image has sort of allowed for customers to feel confident that I want to buy this cake because I want to have this experience and not because, it's a good price or they have a sale.
Makes sense. Yeah. You're more like the one to be part of the experience.
Yeah.
It's a discount. I'll save some bucks. Makes total sense. So we're nearing the end of our conversation. There's usually two questions that I usually ask everyone. And if you had the opportunity to go back and give yourself advice, especially at the early stage when you started, what would that advice be for you?
I would just say to continue with the trial and error aspect of the business. I think that's super important. I think it's really easy to get discouraged along the way when you feel like small things that you're trying. You expect it to have like a massive impact, but at the end of the day, you're just going through the motions, the trial and error aspect to figure out sort of like what your brand is and what it stands for. And I would say not to give up on that part of it. So I think that's the hardest, especially when you're working alone, is to have confidence in your abilities and to try new things and sometimes being okay with the fact that it doesn't work out exactly how you expected, but still trusting the process.
And the last question, what advice would you give to inspiring entrepreneurs, especially women within Aasiyah that are like, I also want to kind of jump into?
I have to have a lot on this. So I would say don't accept the stereotype that sort of women-dominated sectors are not profitable. A lot of people will sort of put baking, sewing, those kinds of businesses under the hobby sort of category and see it as less profitable, not something you can build a really cool brand from. And I think it's really important to remember that sometimes they start like that, but they really do have potential for growing a really cool community and being profitable eventually. It doesn't take years and years. At the end of the day, I think if you're really committed to something, and especially with social media, it's really easy to grow a business like that and to not allow people to make you feel like that type of work is inferior at the end of the day. I mean, I could have gone on the corporate route, but I decided not to. Not to get discouraged in that aspect. And also, the main important thing that I always say is you don't need the 50-page business plan to start. That is the biggest sort of lesson that I've learned. Yeah, to not overthink the starting point.
Yeah. And get on with it, see forwards, figure it out.
And also to just allow your business to grow organically. You don't have to know at this stage where you see yourself in 5 years, but I think it's important to have a vision for what you would like to create, but also be willing to sort of trust the process and see where the process takes you. But, maybe it won't be exactly where you envision, but maybe it'll be better. Maybe it'll be something you didn't think of when you started.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, that's kind of where our conversation ends. But if people want to get in touch with you guys, where do they find you?
Definitely on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is bbcakes.cpt. And also we are currently building a new online store. So you can find us at bbcakes.capetown. That's our new website that we're currently building. And just bbcakes on all social media platforms at this stage.
That's it from us then.